Not So Secret Squirrel by R.C. Fancher. Warning, some material may be offensive to hypocrites. Secret gets impeached. I'm not sure how famous this Hanna-Barbera short was compared to others, but it was about Toon and Squirrel gumshoes in a spoofing of the James Bond, Maltese Falcon, and Casablanca genre. One of the characteristics of the show was that the nutty gumshoe had a trench coat that had everything in it but the kitchen sink in the Empire State Building. As those of you who watched the cartoon may recall, when the chips are down, Secret whips his coat open and pulls out the perfect gadget for the occasion. Sometimes in the process, he reveals secrets about himself that have little to do with the international security. Namely, you find out how nutty the nutty gumshoe really is. I got the idea of this short from an Adult Swim makeover on Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, where the arboreal agent is facing charges of public indecency. I never saw the full episode at the time of print. Actually, I saw parts of it, never saw the entire episode. So I don't know exactly what he said in his entire. So the following is a litigation where Mr. Squirrel responds in his fashion of combating nonsense with nonsense. He does a mea culpa, not for exposing himself on a Saturday morning cartoon, but for covering himself up in the first place. Update. I know enough about the Hanna-Barbera episode to know the difference between it and my story, so we'll just assume that Secret Squirrel was called on several times for it. Now you listen to me, Secret demanded, wagging his brown-haired finger at cartoon watchers throughout the nation. I did not expose myself to that female, Penny Squirrel, on Cartoon Network. The deposition was that Penny Squirrel was a hostage of Yellow Pinky and Gold Flipper when Secret opened his coat to equip himself to save the day when Penny Squirrel screamed in horror and indignation. This served as a catalyst for millions of phone calls of complaints from kids and parents everywhere demanding his crucifixion. The Squirrel's defiance compelled his former allies to admit all reruns of previous episodes, and also hair samples of DNA and from the item in question. The matches were unequivocal. Secret Squirrel had exposed himself over 100 times. His lawyers told him that if he didn't want to become Squirrel Pie, he'd better come up with a good mea culpa. Next hearing, Secret threw himself at the mercy of the court. Cartoon watchers everywhere. I admit that I created expectations in you that were not appropriate. What I had done was reprehensible, indefensible, and inexcusable. I am so sorry that I overestimated your common sense and underestimated your hypocrisy. How could I have been so gullible as to think I would be suffered the same tolerance and immunities as Judge Porky Pig, Donald Duck, Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, and countless other toon animals who freeball their way throughout their entire careers, and countless millions of others who will do so in the future? I'm sorry that I assume that your condoning of what they do all the time would in any way lead to the same tolerance on my behalf for doing so on 5 seconds occasions. I'm sorry the fact that there was not a standard for toon animal modesty until I created one would mean that I owned the standard instead of vice versa. I'm sorry that I created the impression that I was correctly drawn out anatomically. Well, you're not. That's why I screamed, Penny interrupted. If I may continue, said Secret. How could I have been so stupid as to expect my former colleague, Agent Petty, to view the urgency of the circumstance and what I was doing for her and country as being more important than holding me to standards that other toon animals get a free pass on? The garment in question, a utility trench coat based on the design technology of the carpet bag donned by the nanny Mary Poppins, was designed for utility, not modesty. I keep everything in it but the kitchen sink and recycled fondue pots. It and my hat helped me and my colleagues out of many a jam. I am so sorry, so very, very sorry to have believed that you would view it in the right spirit and acknowledge what I've done for you through it. If allowed to move on, I promise I will never wear another stitch of clothing in public again. Oh, in my apartment, I may, when the shades are drawn, I may run around in a suit and tie. Who knows, I might even streak in a tuxedo. But I will never create expectations in you that you have no business having. The judge said, Mr. Squirrel, nobody objects to you opening your coat to get what you need in a crisis, but couldn't you at least find a private dressing room to do it in? No problem, replied the squirrel. I've got one in my trench coat. Ha ha! Screamed Penny. The end. Moral. Show me a law that's only enforced on those who obey it, and I'll show you a law that rewards those who don't. There's law and there's legislated hypocrisy. Sometimes modesty standards can be pretty subjective. Secret Squirrel and Donald Duck both got scandalized for modesty issues. In the case of Secret Squirrel, it was on his side of the fourth wall. That's the wall between the imaginary and the real world. In the case of Donald Duck, it was included on the opposite side of the fifth wall. That's the line between story and critics. In the case of Donald Duck, it was his not wearing pants. Would it have been better if he didn't wear a vest either? In the case of Secret Squirrel, it was opening up his trench coat. Would it have been better if he didn't wear a trench coat at all?